Joining me on the program now from Laidlaw College, Dr. Maja Whitaker. Maja, kia ora, nice to see you again.
Kia ora, Andrew. Good to be with you.
Now, of course, the Jesus model says it's not about the power, it's about servant leadership and all those sorts of things. But meanwhile, back on planet Earth, for the rest of us, when you have a team of leaders, naturally there's going to be some type of power imbalance, regardless of whether or not they're a nice person, and regardless of whether or not we recognize it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the first thing I would want to say about power or having power is that it's not bad.
Yeah.
Like Jesus, he comes to serve, but he is a person with power. He's recognized as one who speaks with authority.
Yeah.
So power in itself is morally neutral.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good or bad, but it can be used badly. And the thing that I think is most important for us to draw our attention to is just upping our awareness
Yeah.
of power, because it's when we're pretending that we don't have power or living like we don't that we can get ourselves into some quite difficult situations, and misconduct, and just like from the little stuff down to the really big stuff.
Yeah.
And so having awareness of power is the most important
I
thing,
think
I'd
that
say.
is the key thing, really, because for some people who are in leadership positions, they go, "Well, no, I don't consider myself a leader. I'm just one of the guys, and we're all on the same level, and there's no power imbalance here." That in itself should be a little bit of a red flag. If we don't recognise the potential pitfalls, we're not going to notice them before we fall into them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, so people in leadership positions have power because of their role,
Yeah.
but you have power in lots of different ways. You have power because of your gender, because of your age, because of your education, your history with people, your amount of charisma. There's lots of different things that go into it.
Yeah.
And you can have dynamics in a group of people where there's a person who's got the title or the role of the person who's in charge, but actually it's that influential person, the patriarch or the matriarch, often in the family system of a church community. They've been there for years.
Yep.
They give, they're known, and so their opinion has a lot more sway, on a board of elders and that kind of thing. And so the title is not necessarily where all the power is.
Yeah.
But like, as you say, if pretending that we don't have power, so minimizing that, is really problematic. So you can imagine a situation where, if I think, yep, I'm in charge of someone, say, I'm at my church, and I've got someone who's an intern for me,
Yep.
and I'm just like, nah, we're good, we're fine, we're mates. I'm not even going to say that, but it doesn't sound like something I'd say, does it? But that kind of thing. And I say, oh, hey, would you mind doing this favor for me?
Yeah.
Feel free to say no if you can't. But actually, is that other person,
Yeah.
do they really feel free? I might say, oh, feel free to say no.
Mm-hmm.
But does the power differential between us mean that they're actually free, that they feel free? It doesn't matter if I think they feel free, but as the person with power, it's my responsibility to steward that power well.
Can we focus on the spiritual aspect of it? Because this is something, I suppose, unique to the church scenario. Yes, we can have power imbalances in a work situation or in different types of family dynamics and relationships, but in a church setting, there is the spiritual component. This is the person with the theological degree who does the sermons. They have a different type of spiritual power than we do. And sometimes you can be in a situation where members of the congregation would just take everything that the individual at the front who's leading as gospel. There's even a spiritual dimension to this, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely there is. And that's partly due to what a person might possess for themselves,
Yeah.
but also what other people might project onto them. So a Christian leader has often, like you say, got some theological education. There's like a bit of like charisma or anointing, whatever language you want to turn,
Yeah.
that actually, yeah, there's power of that. Then there's the power of the role and, all of the stuff that comes with that. And that means that you do have this kind of like God factor power. But then there's also the dynamic that people project things onto you.
Yeah.
That comes about when people have shared their secrets with you, you have power, not over them, but like towards them, might
Yeah.
be a better way to say it. People project onto you things like they think that because you're the pastor, you represent God. They wouldn't
Yes.
probably consciously say that or
Yeah.
articulate it, but unconsciously, you are as if you are God to them.
Yeah,
And
so
so when you say, this is what I think you should do,
yeah.
this is what I think God's plan is for your life, even this is what I see in you, sometimes we have to be careful about how we are holding that and recognizing what is what are my opinion, my preference, my
Yeah.
intuition, and what is actually I'm feeling more like I'm hearing with God. Would you discern that with me together?
Yeah, yeah. And this is tricky because, as you say, even if you say something, even if you put the disclaimers in there, the way in which it is heard, the way in which it is received may be different than your intention because of this power imbalance.
Yeah,
And
and there can be a lot of different cultural factors that come into that
yeah,
that you might not be aware of from your experience because of your cultural context, your gender, all of those kind of things. So you have to get a lot of curiosity and imagination, and it's always like safety is found in the counsel of many.
yeah, certainly. Is there practical work that people in positions of power within a church structure can do to restore that balance? Can we even up the power imbalance, or is that just the nature
Mm.
of structures and relationships?
Yeah, no, there's definitely stuff you can do. Like I encourage people to, do some reading. Mary Kate Morse has got a great book. Pete Scazzero talks about this in his Emotionally Healthy Leadership
Hmm.
book. So thinking about what is the power that I hold, do like a kind of power audit, but thinking about like our practical scenarios that we're in. So one idea that's helpful is that in what we call like a bounded social space, like a meeting or a committee or whatever,
Yeah.
there is a total, like it's a zero sum equation. There is a total amount of power, and we can't add more into that. If, say, I'm running a committee meeting, and I'm the chair of the board, for example,
Yep.
if I've got more power, if I want someone else to have more power, I've actually got to give them some of mine.
Hmm.
I can't just say, I want to empower you and I'm not going to change anything I do. I
Yeah.
actually need to give some of that away. And that looks like just listening a lot more. Leaders are serial advice givers, just slowing down at that, asking questions, noticing who's having more input. I think we need to be really cautious in that space. We often talk about who's got a voice at the table.
Yeah.
And sometimes people have got a voice at the table. We've got representation on the committee, or maybe we don't, which is like another whole thing.
Yeah.
But are those people actually, do they feel free to speak? Are their voices heard as much as, other people? And so being attentive to that is really, really important. And then just a really like risky and scary question to ask is to ask another person, how are you experiencing me?
Yeah.
And that's like, oof, you got to be feeling like loved by Jesus in the morning before you can go into that question. But asking people who you have power, like, how do you experience me?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of caveats to do around it. Make sure that's done well so they actually feel free to be honest in their answers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but if you've got some children, especially some teenagers in your life, in your family, they will speak the truth to you
Yeah,
on that one.
absolutely. Not necessarily in love, but yeah, again, you may need to prepare yourself for that level
Yes.
of brutal honesty. Just finally on this one, Maya, if there has developed a situation within a church community where it's noticeable that the power imbalance has led to some problems, some
Mm,
structural and relational problems within the organization. Now, I'm not talking about things that involve criminal proceedings.
mm,
That's a totally different category. But you just get the sense, either as the person in leadership or the person in the congregation, that things are a bit off. How do we take steps? How do we raise the flag? How do we raise this particular issue, even in a situation where there is still a power imbalance?
And that can be really tricky because that usually there's clear guidelines around who do I go to with a concern or a complaint. I go to the board, I go to the, whatever it is, depending on the structure of a church governance. And often we talk about Matthew 18, you go
Yep.
to the person first. If they
Hmm.
don't listen, you bring someone with you. And again, that's really, really good practice, but it puts an awful lot of burden on the person who doesn't have power to
Yes.
go to the person in power and say something, and then will they be heard?
Yeah.
And so my general encouragement is to, follow those principles as much as you can. Like bringing another person with you is really helpful and being quite thoughtful about who that person is and how they might advocate for you. But then often you do need to escalate things. So go to someone else, and not because you're trying to stir the pot, but it is actually worth attention
Mm.
because there's this potential for things to actually be quite way more problematic. And this is what it looks like to love each other well in community. But we have to be really thoughtful. And it's not easy for,
No.
for anyone, but I think it's really something worth giving our attention to.
And certainly difficult within a congregational setting where a lot of people are volunteers, and you don't want to upset them and cause division within the church. But if something is broken, certainly needs
Yeah.
shining a light on that so that we can address the
Yeah.
real issues. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Maja,
Yeah.
thank you so much for your wisdom in this sensitive but important topic. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Andrew.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.